You think you can kidnap my father and play angel, you piece of trash? The words sliced through the humid Baltimore air like a blade. Harsh, loud, unforgiving. Maya Williams froze, a Tupperware container still warm in her hand, and the frail old man clinging to her arm like she was the only piece of land left above water. Maya blinked. "Excuse me?" Jordan Langston didn't blink. His eyes ice cold and sharp as a knife drilled into her like she were a criminal holding a hostage. "Step away from him, now." Maya lifted both arms, palms out. Wait. I found him 2 days ago. He was sitting alone at a bus stop. He didn't even know his name." Before she could finish, Jordan's fist flew. It wasn't a slap. It was a full, wild punch, landing across her cheekbone with a crack that echoed. Maya stumbled to the ground, blood trickling from the corner of her lip, shock washing over her face. The old man cried out, "Don't hurt Maya. She helps me." "No." Gasps burst from the small crowd that had begun to gather. A woman nearby whispered, "Did he just hit her? Is that the billionaire guy? Jordan something? Is she his father's nurse?" "No, he says she kidnapped the man." Phones came out, screens lit up. TikTok was already live. Maya pushed herself up, dazed. "I found him sitting alone near the bus stop. He didn't know his name. He was cold. I helped him." Jordan pointed straight at her, shouting like a prosecutor. "Helped him? Is that what you call keeping him hostage in your filthy little apartment? You drugged him, didn't you?" "I didn't," Maya's voice cracked. Her knees wobbled as she tried to stand straight. Her hands trembled, stained with blood. The sirens arrived. 3 cop cars pulled up fast, and uniformed officers surrounded the scene. "He assaulted her," one bystander called out. "She kidnapped my father," Jordan snapped. "She's been hiding him for 2 days. He has Alzheimer's." Ugh. The police hesitated, torn between the bleeding woman and the billionaire. The old man, the one Maya had called Mr. E, mumbled, "Maya gave me soup. I like the crunchy peanut butter." "Sir, step away from the suspect," the officer ordered. Jordan moved toward her again, but an officer pulled him back. "Sir, we have this. I want her arrested. Now." 2 officers grabbed Maya's arms, twisted them behind her back. Cold metal snapped around her wrists. "This is a mistake," she cried out. "I didn't do anything wrong." Jordan watched, breathing hard, blood on his knuckles, jaw tight. The old man looked on, eyes filling with tears. Why is Maya crying?" 2 days earlier, Edward Langston had broken free. He wasn't sure how. The door had been left ajar. The man with the cigar had stepped away, and the others hadn't heard him shuffle down the hallway barefoot. They'd taken him for ransom. Jordan was supposed to pay, but something had gone wrong. He wandered for hours, dazed and confused, unsure where he was or how to get home. Edward Langston had wandered, barefoot and mumbling, into Maya's world, broken, drenched from the rain, and barely conscious. He'd collapsed at a city bus stop, trembling and soaked through, whispering only one word, "Jordan, Jordan." Maya had passed by on her way home from a late shift. Most people would have crossed the street. She had crouched beside him instead, wrapped him in her coat, and called 911. When help never came, she brought him home, bathed him, fed him oatmeal with too much honey because he winced at bitterness, let him sleep on her couch with her rescue cat curled on his chest. She didn't ask for anything in return. She had no idea the man on her sofa was the father of a billionaire tech mogul. No idea there was a manhunt underway. No idea she was moments away from being the next face on every news broadcast in America. At the precinct, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Maya sat on the metal bench in the holding cell, lips swollen, cheekbone bruised, heart shattered. Hours bled into days. No visitors. No phone calls. The media smeared her. Stranger claims to rescue. Billionaire's father. Is she a scammer? One headline read. Another. Who is Maya Williams? What we know about the woman behind the disappearance. She lost her job. Her landlord stopped answering her calls. Her neighbors started closing their doors when she walked past. 3 days later, the metal door creaked open. "Williams," a voice called. She looked up. A woman in a sleek black suit entered, holding a manila envelope. "Name's Marissa Dean. I'm a lawyer. Your friend Susan from Garden View Retirement Center called me." Said you took care of her grandmother last year? Maya nodded, barely believing someone still remembered. Marissa, Saturday. I pulled footage from 3 security cameras along East Madison Avenue. Guess what it shows? You finding Mr. Edward Langston alone, barefoot, soaked in the rain. That afternoon, in a conference room at Langston Tech headquarters, Janelle played the footage again, but this time in front of Jordan Langston, his legal team, and 2 reporters. On the screen, Edward was seen shivering on a bench under a flickering streetlight. Maya approached slowly, offering him a cup of tea and a blanket. No traps, no manipulation. Just kindness. Jordan's mouth parted slightly, his face drained of color. He said nothing. You assaulted her, Janelle said, arms folded, publicly, on camera, called her trash, smeared her name across every outlet. And what did she do? She kept your father alive. The reporters took notes furiously. Jordan struggled. I didn't know. She told you, Janelle snapped. You just didn't listen. Later that day, Maya was released from custody. Jordan waited outside the courthouse, suit perfectly pressed, with a certified check in his hand. I want to offer compensation, he said, avoiding her eyes. For what I said. For the harm I caused. I was wrong. Maya looked at the check. 7 figures. She looked back at him, her lip still scabbed, her pride intact. No, she said. Jordan's eyebrows lifted. No? I didn't help your father for money, Maya said. And I don't want your guilt check. Jordan blinked. I want to make this right. She looked him dead in the eyes. You don't fix something like this with money. You fix it by learning to look past your assumptions and seeing people for who they are, not who you expect them to be. He opened his mouth but found no words. She turned and walked away, shoulders high. Maya turned, walked down the courthouse steps into the warm light of late afternoon. For the first time since it all began, she walked freely not just from custody, but from the shame someone tried to place on her. Behind her, Jordan remained still and silent. 2 days earlier, rain battered the cracked sidewalks of West Baltimore like a slow, steady war drum. The city had gone quiet in that way. It only did when the sky turned dark gray and the wind warned people to stay home. But Maya Williams wasn't home. She was walking, umbrella half broken, hoodie soaked, plastic grocery bags biting into her wrists. It had been a long day at the community kitchen, 3 shifts back to back. Her feet ached, her stomach groaned. The streetlights flickered like they too were too tired to fight the dark. She rounded the corner near the bus stop on 38th and Lexington when she saw him, an old man sitting on the bench with no shoes. His socks were soaked, one of them halfway torn, toes poking through. He clutched a torn blanket around himself like armor. His eyes were glassy, vacant. He rocked slightly, whispering something over and over under his breath. Jordan, Jordan, Jordan. Maya slowed, instinct prickling. Most people would have walked past. Heck, she should have. She had soup to make, laundry to do, a call to return to the bank about overdraft fees. But something about the man's posture, the way he trembled like a leaf about to fall, stopped her. She stepped closer. Sir, are you okay? He didn't look up. She crouched down in front of him, her knees wet against the pavement. Do you know where you are? Jordan. His voice cracked, no louder than a breath. Is that your name, Jordan? She asked gently. His lips quivered. No, I'm looking for Jordan, my boy. Maya's heart tightened. The man didn't just seem lost, he seemed gone, like someone had opened a door inside his mind, and everything that made him who he was had just slipped out. You're freezing, she murmured. Come on, let's get you warm. He flinched when she touched his arm. It's okay, she reassured him. I'm not gonna hurt you. My name's Maya. I live 2 blocks down. I've got soup and a heater. You'll be safe. He stared at her like she was the first person who'd spoken to him in a decade. Slowly, painfully, he let her help him up. Back at her small apartment, Maya gave him a towel, a fresh pair of sweatpants that once belonged to her uncle, and a bowl of lentil soup. He devoured it like he hadn't eaten in days. What's your name? She asked. He paused, the spoon halfway to his lips. I don't know. That's okay, she said softly. We'll figure it out. She called him Mr. E, short for Edward, though she didn't know that yet. It just felt right. She let him sleep on the couch. He talked in his sleep, flinching at imaginary sounds. She placed a worn blanket over him, turned the space heater on, and kept the hallway light dim. That first night, he cried in his sleep, and Maya sat nearby, watching over him like a silent guard. The next morning, Maya made scrambled eggs and toast. Mr. E stared at the plate like it was treasure. He spoke a little more random thoughts, half-formed memories. The lake house. She wore a yellow dress. Jordan hated fishing. None of it made sense, but Maya nodded anyway. She posted a note on the local missing persons forum online, included a vague description, but didn't include a photo. He was too scared for that. She figured maybe someone in the community would recognize him. Or maybe, if she was lucky, he'd remember something himself. The news was playing faintly on her cracked TV set when it happened. Edward Langston, father of tech billionaire Jordan Langston, was reportedly abducted 3 nights ago. The kidnappers demanded a $5 million ransom. Authorities have not confirmed whether the money was delivered. Police now fear foul play. Maya turned, bowl in hand, and looked at the screen. The photo that flashed across the broadcast nearly made her drop the spoon. It was him. Same eyes, same posture, just in a tuxedo, not in her borrowed sweatpants. She froze. If you feel for Maya in this shocking moment, hit the like button to show your support, and don't forget to comment with the city or state you're watching from. Who knows? Someone nearby might be watching this story along with you right now. That night, she debated going to the police. But something inside her, something old and wise, said wait. Something about the way Mr. E trembled when the phone rang, or the way he hid behind her when the mailman came, made her stomach twist. He wasn't just lost. He was afraid. Then came that day. She had just returned from the community garden with a bag of tomatoes when the black SUV rolled up. Men in suits, police sirens, cameras, and Jordan Langston. She didn't even have time to set the tomatoes down before she was bleeding on the sidewalk. Now, sitting in a hospital room with a split lip and a silence thick as mud, Maya stared at the ceiling. Her lawyer friend Caleb sat beside her, flipping through paperwork. They dropped the charges, he said. They won't apologize, but they dropped them. Because of the video? She asked. He nodded. Store cam. Bus cam. A neighbor's doorbell cam. All time. Stamped. It proves you weren't even near him during the abduction. He must have escaped before the ransom call was made. Maya let out a long breath. Caleb continued. They arrested 2 suspects this morning. Ex-employees of a private care facility. Looks like they snatched him during transport. Planned the whole thing. But he fought back. Got loose. So he ran, and ended up on that bench, Maya whispered. Yeah, and you were the only one who stopped. She chuckled bitterly. Got me punched in the mouth. Caleb looked at her. Jordan wants to meet. I don't care. He offered compensation. No, I really don't care. He sighed. You sure you want to walk away from all that? Maya turned to the window, watching the slow drizzle fall over the city. Tell him he can keep his money, and his cameras, and his lawyers. What do you want then? I want him to live the rest of his life knowing that a stranger did more for his father in 2 days than he had in 2 decades. Caleb said nothing. She smiled sadly. That's a better debt than anything he could put in a check. Man. Outside, the rain fell like forgiveness that hadn't arrived yet. But Maya wasn't waiting for it anymore. The next morning, sunlight sliced through the blinds of Maya's tiny kitchen like a gentle apology. It was the first dry day in a week. The city outside was still stained with yesterday's pain, but in Maya's home, things had quieted. Mr. E. Edward Langston was awake early, sitting at the kitchen table in the same old sweater Maya had loaned him. He was staring out the window, murmuring softly to himself, his fingers wrapped around a chipped coffee mug Maya had filled with chamomile tea. She poured herself a cup and joined him. Sleep okay? She asked gently. He nodded, though his eyes were distant. I dreamed of ducks on a lake, he murmured. The water was quiet. My boy used to feed them. Maya smiled softly. Sounds peaceful. I think I remember the smell of pancakes. He turned to her. You ever been to Lake Roland? She blinked. Once, as a kid, school trip, I had a cabin there, he said slowly. Before the company, before everything. My wife, my Martha, she used to burn the pancakes on purpose, said it gave them character. Maya froze. It was the first time he'd said a full name. Martha? He nodded again. She had laugh lines, deep ones. Her eyes disappeared when she smiled. That sounds beautiful. She's gone now, he whispered. I remember the funeral. I wore the wrong tie. They sat in silence for a moment, two souls tethered to loss, but bound by kindness. Then he looked at her and asked, Am I in trouble? Maya shook her head. No, Mr. Langston. You're safe now. The people who hurt you, they've been arrested. He frowned. Why would anyone want to hurt an old man? Her throat tightened. Sometimes people think money is worth more than lives. He considered that for a long time, then sighed. That's wrong. Yes, she agreed. Island. A knock at the door startled both of them. Maya opened it to find a woman in her mid-60s with a leather-bound notebook, professional but warm, standing beside Caleb. This is Dr. Peterson, Caleb explained. Memory specialist. Jordan asked her to come. No pressure. Maya hesitated. Dr. Peterson stepped forward. Only here to talk. If Mr. Langston is comfortable. Inside, Edward's eyes lit up with the strange recognition of something familiar, though he couldn't place it. Do I know you? He asked. No, she said kindly, kneeling beside him, but I'd like to. The session lasted an hour. Maya sat nearby, quiet, listening to questions and watching Edward's memory stretch like a limb unused. She learned his birthday, his high school mascot, that he once ran track, that he'd bought Jordan his first computer when he was 10 and taught him how to code in BASIC. He hated it, Edward chuckled, said it was boring, until he made a game. Dr. Peterson scribbled notes quickly. That's a significant memory. He won the science fair with that game, Edward continued. I was so proud, but I didn't say it enough. Afterward, as the doctor packed up, Maya walked her to the door. Is he getting better? Dr. Peterson smiled softly. Memories are like fireflies. They come and go, but he remembers the important things. That's something. That afternoon, Maya received a formal letter delivered by courier. Dear Miss Williams, I owe you more than I can ever repay. My name is Jordan Langston. I have spent most of my life building systems that run on logic, data, and control. What happened with my father was a failure of every system I thought I understood, especially the one inside myself. I failed him, and I failed you. I know you don't want my money, but I'm offering you something else. A partnership. My foundation, Langston Futures, is launching a new community initiative support for grassroots caregivers, advocates, and underfunded community health workers. I want you to lead it. Not because of pity, but because you saw what no one else did, a human being in need. You saved my father. And in doing so, you reminded me what humanity looks like. Please consider. Jordan. Maya sat with the letter for a long time. She reread it twice. Then she folded it and placed it beneath her radio, the same one she used to play jazz from while cooking for Edward. The next day, she took Edward out for a walk. The air was crisp, and the leaves were beginning to turn. They walked slowly, her arm hooked gently through his. Children played on the sidewalk. A man grilled hot dogs on a corner cart. Someone called out, Hey Maya, bless your heart, girl. She smiled. People were starting to see her again for who she really was. Edward stopped in front of a small bookstore. That one, he said, pointing. Martha loved that place. You want to go in? She asked. He shook his head. Just wanted to see it. They stood together in silence. After a while, he asked, Do you think my son still remembers the lake? I think he remembers more than he lets on. Edward looked up at her. He used to be gentle. Maybe he still is, she offered, just buried under a lot of noise. Edward sighed. That's the thing about noise. Eventually you have to choose whether to shout over it or listen through it. Maya smiled. Sounds like something Martha would say. He chuckled. She was wiser than both of us. They began to walk again, slow and steady. Behind them, a man watched from across the street, Jordan Langston, in jeans and a coat too casual for his usual persona. He didn't approach, just watched, his eyes wet, a question in his expression he hadn't yet figured out how to ask. Later that evening, Maya stood on her porch as the sun dipped low behind the city. Caleb arrived with 2 coffees, one for her, one for himself. "You get his letter?" he asked. "Yeah. You gonna take the job?" "I'm thinking about it." He looked at her. "It's a big thing. Big budget. Real impact." "I know." "So?" She sipped her coffee and looked out at the street, the cars, the old men playing dominoes near the corner store. "I'm not here to fix broken billionaires, Caleb," she said, "but maybe I can build something that helps the people they forget." He nodded slowly. "That's one hell of a reason to say yes." Maya looked down at her hands, strong, calloused, capable. Then she looked at the sky, and she remembered the man with no name, sitting alone at a bus stop. She remembered that all it took to change a life was a little soup, a little time, and someone who cared enough to stay. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was the start of everything. The invitation came on a Tuesday, printed on heavy ivory cardstock, delivered in a discreet black envelope. Langston Futures Community Summit. Private session, vision, and founders. At the bottom, her name Maya Williams was printed in gold lettering, as though she had always belonged there. She stared at it for a long time, unsure whether to laugh or rip it up. Caleb sat on her sofa, legs crossed, sipping sweet tea. "You said you wanted to make a difference. There's your seat at the table." "Now, it's his table," Maya muttered. "He's just pulling out a chair to look generous." "Maybe," Caleb shrugged, "but maybe he's finally realized the room was empty without people like you." She didn't reply. Instead, she folded the invitation in half, slid it into her notebook, and said nothing more. 3 days later, she stood in front of the Langston Foundation's headquarters in downtown Baltimore. The building was sleek, all glass and steel and money. The kind of place that looked like it cost more per hour to maintain than her entire block earned in a week. A security guard waved her through with a nod. Another staff member, in a navy blue blazer, escorted her to a private conference room on the 18th floor. Inside were 6 people, all seated at a long oak table. Jordan Langston stood at the head, hands clasped behind his back, posture rigid. When Maya walked in, everyone turned. Jordan didn't smile. He didn't nod. He simply gestured to the empty seat across from him. "Thank you for coming." Maya sat slowly, her spine straight, eyes forward. She felt every gaze on her like spotlights. The woman to her right, Dr. Helen Morris, founder of a grassroots trauma clinic, offered a small smile. "Been wanting to meet you. Word gets around fast." Another man, clearly a former city councilman, leaned in. "You're the reason this initiative exists." Maya gave a polite nod, unsure whether that was praise or burden. Jordan cleared his throat. "Let's begin." What followed was an hour of discussion: real issues, real numbers, food insecurity, elder neglect, the shortage of home-based caregivers in marginalized communities. It was more than performative charity. It was groundwork, strategy, planning. But every time Maya spoke, suggesting a mobile support unit, proposing partnerships with local churches, challenging a proposal to use city metrics that overlooked undocumented residents, Jordan listened. Not like a CEO waiting to correct, but like a student learning from someone who lived what the reports only summarized. Afterward, as the others filtered out, Jordan approached her with a tablet in hand. "These are the preliminary grant applications. I'd like you to review them. The team wants you to co-lead distribution." Maya took the tablet but didn't look up. "Why me?" He hesitated. "Because you care. And because you already do the work. All we're doing is catching up." She finally met his eyes. "You're not trying to fix me anymore?" "No," he said quietly. "I'm trying to fix myself." She gave a slow nod. "Good. Start with your father." That evening, Maya returned home to find Edward sitting on the porch, watching the sunset with a blanket draped over his knees. Her cat was curled beside him like a sentry. "Long day?" he asked, his voice stronger than before. "You could say that." She sank into the chair next to him. "You remember the lake house?" He smiled faintly. "Some days I do. Some days it's just a feeling." "Jordan's trying," she said after a beat. "He's building something." Not just for the cameras. Edward chuckled. He always needed to build. Blocks, Legos, code, now systems. He still has a lot to learn. Then he's lucky you were the one to teach him. She looked at Edward, unsure how to respond. He turned to her, eyes steady. You gave me more in 2 days than some people get in a lifetime. You saw me when I couldn't see myself. She blinked hard against the sting in her eyes. Thank you, he added, for the soup and the silence. Later that night, Maya pulled out the tablet. Names, organizations, proposals there were dozens. Stories of underfunded shelters, burnt-out social workers, high school kids running food drives from their garages. She saw herself in those applications. She saw Edward. She saw her mother who once cooked extra portions just in case a neighbor knocked. She spent the whole night reading. By morning, she had notes on all of them. Weeks passed. The initiative launched under the name The Lantern Project, chosen by Maya. A lantern doesn't fix the night, she explained at the press release. It just helps you see your way through it. Funding poured in. Local partnerships grew. Maya became a voice on radio panels, at town halls, sometimes even interviewed on TV, not as a victim of mistaken identity, but as a leader with a vision. But with every success, she kept her feet planted. She still visited the shelter on Tuesdays, still helped at the soup kitchen, still walked with Edward every morning, past the bookstore and the park where children shouted in joy. One day, as they passed a mural that had recently gone up an image of Maya helping Edward at the bus stop, he stopped. Is that us? She nodded. He looked at the painted version of himself, fragile and lost, and then at her, calm and focused. I don't remember that moment, he admitted. That's okay, she said. I remember it for both of us. He squeezed her hand. One Sunday afternoon, Jordan came to visit. He brought no entourage, no assistants, just himself, in a hoodie and jeans, holding a single photograph. He found Maya and Edward on the porch, sharing sweet tea. I thought you might want this, he said, handing the photo to his father. It was from decades ago, Jordan at age 10, holding a fish as big as his arm, grinning, with Edward behind him, laughing. Edward stared at it for a long time. That was the day you fell in, he said. Jordan laughed. Yeah, you pulled me out, then gave me hot chocolate and told me I was stronger than the river. I did, didn't I? Edward said, voice caught somewhere between awe and memory. They shared a quiet moment. Jordan turned to Maya. I'm not sure how to thank you. You don't need to. But I want to. She looked at him steadily. Then don't thank me with words. Keep listening. Keep building. Keep choosing the harder path when it's the right one. He nodded slowly. I will. Maya rose. Good. Now help your dad inside. It's getting cold. As the two Langstons walked inside, Maya remained on the porch, eyes fixed on the horizon. The world hadn't changed overnight. Racism hadn't vanished. Greed hadn't disappeared. But something had shifted. A chair had been pulled out at the table. And this time, it had her name on it. The Langston Futures annual gala was not the kind of event Maya ever pictured herself attending. Held at the historic Walters Art Museum in downtown Baltimore, it was an evening soaked in opulence, floor-length gowns, tuxedos, champagne towers, and white-gloved waitstaff whispering madam and sir like it was the only language they'd ever known. Maya stood near a statue of Athena, wearing the only evening dress she owned, a simple navy blue gown, borrowed earrings, and her late mother's silver bracelet. She felt out of place among the designers and donors, the clinking glasses and curated smiles. But she didn't flinch. She belonged here now, even if she hadn't been invited for the same reasons they had. From across the marble floor, Jordan Langston spotted her. He excused himself from a conversation with 2 senators and made his way over, nodding politely as he passed other guests. You clean up well, he said lightly, offering a glass of sparkling water. She took it, raising an eyebrow. And you still look like you're trying to sell me software. He chuckled. Guilty. There was a pause between them, comfortable now, not strained. This night's about you, you know, he said. No, she replied. It's about the people who aren't here, the ones who can't afford a dress or a ticket, the ones building change with duct tape and borrowed vans. He nodded solemnly. They're the reason we're funding the next wave. Grassroots, led boots on the ground initiatives. 1. She took a sip of her drink. Good. Just don't let the suits forget that when the cameras are gone. Before he could reply, a voice cut through the noise, low, cold, entitled. Well, if it isn't the savior of the slums. They turned. Standing a few feet away was a woman draped in red satin, wine in hand, diamonds at her ears. Linda Moore, executive director of a powerful East Coast charity known for legacy philanthropy, which was code for old money and even older ideals. Maya didn't blink. Evening. Linda gave a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I heard your little project is doing wonders with. What is it? Soup kitchens and bus tokens? Jordan stiffened. Maya stayed calm. Sometimes the smallest things save the biggest lives, Maya said, tone even. Linda's laughter tinkled like glass. Touché. She turned to Jordan. We should talk about merging your little venture with our foundation. Give it real reach. Maya placed her glass down. If by reach you mean swallowing it whole, then no thank you. Jordan cleared his throat. Actually, Linda, Maya leads the Lantern Project. Any proposal goes through her. Linda's smile cracked for a moment, but she covered it. How quaint. She walked off, the scent of power trailing behind her like expensive perfume. Maya exhaled slowly. Was that supposed to intimidate me? Jordan smirked. She intimidates everyone except apparently you. No, I've cleaned floors dirtier than her attitude. He laughed, but Maya's face turned serious. Jordan, you can't let people like that reshape what we're building. Not for a donation. Not for a headline. I know, I won't. She studied him. Good. Because this movement isn't about ego. It's about equity. Later that night, Edward Langston arrived with Caleb. The room softened as soon as he entered, dressed in a tailored gray suit and holding Maya's arm with quiet pride. He no longer trembled when strangers approached. He no longer looked like a man searching for his name. He looked like someone who had found home again. The crowd clapped as he took a seat of honor next to Maya and Jordan. When the microphone passed to him, he stood with surprising strength. I don't remember everything, he began, voice slow but steady. But I remember her. He looked at Maya. She saw me when I couldn't see myself. Not as a problem. Not as a patient. As a man. We forget, in our suits and speeches, that sometimes the greatest kindness is simply sitting beside someone without asking them to perform. A quiet hush fell over the hall. She saved me, he finished. Not with medicine, with soup and silence. The applause was thunderous. After the gala, Maya stepped outside for air. The city buzzed around her, the low hum of cars, the faint music from a jazz bar down the block, the smell of roasted peanuts from a street cart nearby. Caleb joined her, unbuttoning his collar. That speech? Whew. You got the old man sounding like Maya Angelou. She chuckled. He's been reading poetry lately. Caleb leaned against the stone rail. You know, people are already saying you should run for office. I don't do politics. Sure, you do. You just do it with food, care, and blunt honesty. She smiled, then looked at the stars beginning to peek through the city haze. I don't want power, Caleb. I want presence. Real presence. People who show up, who sit in the dirt with you when you fall, and walk beside you when you rise. He looked at her, quieter now. You think the world's ready for that? I think the world's starving for it. That night, Maya returned home to find a note under her door. No name, just a line written in firm handwriting. The world only changes when ordinary people choose to see each other. You saw me. That changed everything. J. L. She read it twice, then folded it into the back pocket of her journal, next to her mother's favorite recipe for peach cobbler. Across town, in a penthouse suite lined with windows overlooking the harbor, Jordan Langston stood at his desk, staring at a blueprint. It wasn't for a product. It was for a new facility, part community center, part elder care hub, part sanctuary. At the top of the plans, one name stood in bold letters, the Williams Center for Human Dignity. He tapped the name once with his finger, then picked up the phone. Get me Maya, he said. I want her to design this from the ground up. No board, no politics. Her vision, her call. And for the first time in a very long time, Jordan Langston smiled, not the smile of a man who had won something, but but the smile of a man who had finally started to understand what really mattered. Because dignity, like love, could never be given. It could only be returned. Maya sat at the long wooden table in her dining room, a spread of blueprints, sketches, and community survey responses laid out before her like a mosaic of dreams. She was barefoot, wearing sweatpants and a worn university hoodie, her hair tied up in a bun. A jazz record played softly in the background, and the scent of roasted garlic and tomatoes from her simmering pot of sauce drifted in from the kitchen. The Williams Center for Human Dignity. It was no longer just a name on a blueprint, it was becoming real. And it was hers to shape. Across from her sat Jamal Lewis, a community architect in his late 50s, with graying temples and reading glasses perched low on his nose. "You're thinking too small," he said, gesturing at one of her sketches. "You got a once-in-a-generation shot to build something that breathes." "I'm thinking practical," Maya countered. "If the plumbing breaks down in 2 years, no one will care how poetic the archway was." Jamal chuckled. "That's what I like about you, Maya. You want beauty with a backbone." She smiled faintly. "I want function that feels like home." Edward walked in, moving more steadily than before, carrying 2 mugs of tea. "You two have been arguing for an hour. That means it's going well." Jamal took a mug gratefully. "Thanks, Mr. Langston." Edward sat beside Maya, eyeing a sketch of the courtyard. "You're keeping the garden?" "Yeah," she said. "Raised beds, tomatoes, collards, peppers, food grown by the community, for the community." He nodded slowly. "Good. My Martha used to say, you want to heal a person, feed them with something that remembers the Sunday." Maya's hand paused over a note, and she smiled. "That's going on the wall." The next morning, Maya received a call from one of the community outreach partners in East Baltimore. There had been vandalism at one of the Lantern Project's partner shelters. Spray-painted slurs, broken windows, a staffer had been shoved and threatened. Maya was in her truck within 10 minutes. When she arrived, the sight made her heart clench. The shelter's mural, painted by local teens, celebrating unity, had been defaced with red spray paint. Words too vile to repeat dripped down over faces that had once smiled from the brick wall. She stepped inside. The staffer, a young Latina named Rosa, sat on a bench with an ice pack to her cheek, eyes red but burning with anger. "I told them we wouldn't back down," Rosa said. "You did right," Maya replied. "But now we do more than stand. We rebuild." Loudly. They called in volunteers that same afternoon. By evening, 50 people stood outside the shelter. Students, elders, church members, artists. Maya stood on a ladder with a paint roller, covering the hate one stroke at a time. Jordan arrived late, wearing jeans and sneakers, paint on his hands by the end of the night. He worked beside Maya in silence. And for once, there was no press, no photographers, no speeches. Only people, doing the work. A few days later, a meeting was called at City Hall. Maya had been invited to represent the Lantern Project. It wasn't the kind of space she usually trusted, but Caleb urged her to go. Inside the council chamber, politicians in suits sat behind curved desks, papers rustling, voices clipped and professional. Maya wore a tan blazer over her usual black slacks and flats. She looked calm, but every muscle in her body was alert. Jordan was seated beside her, quiet but observant. Councilman Green, a balding man in his early 60s known for his tough-on-crime stance, cleared his throat. "Miss Williams, we commend your efforts, but there's concern about the safety and funding of community-run operations." Maya met his gaze. "With respect, Councilman, the real concern should be what happens when you defund what's working and overfund what isn't." There were murmurs. Jordan shot her a quick glance, equal parts admiration and warning. "You believe the Lantern Project can maintain safety and accountability without direct city oversight?" Green pressed. "I believe our results speak louder than your skepticism," Maya replied. "We've reduced emergency room visits among seniors by 28% in 6 months. We've connected over 300 unhoused residents to food and care. And we've done it without arresting people for being poor." A pause. Then, a slow clap. From the back of the room, Edward stood. Dressed in a neat brown jacket and holding a folder, he spoke clearly. "I was once the man you're debating over like a line item. I was found by Maya Williams. Not because she was paid, because she saw me, and now I see all of you. Don't waste this moment. The room went silent. Councilman Green blinked, then nodded. Noted. That night, Maya and Edward returned home. She made grilled cheese and tomato soup simple, warm, comforting. Edward sat at the table, staring at his bowl. "You're doing something special," he said. "So are you," she replied. He looked up. "Do you think Jordan's ready to carry what you're building?" Maya thought about it for a moment. "I think he's still learning how to listen. But that's more than most ever do." Edward smiled. "Then maybe it's time." "For what?" "For you to teach someone how to lead, not just serve." She swallowed hard. "That's a lot of trust. You earned it." Later that week, Maya sat at her desk, staring at the final blueprint for the Williams Center. Her name was stamped on every page. Her heart was in every room. But the next phase wasn't just about buildings. It was about infrastructure of care. Policy, training, legacy. She picked up her phone and called Jordan. "I'm ready," she said. "For what?" he asked. "To talk about passing the torch, eventually." There was silence on the line. Then, softly, "Okay. But you lied at first." She smiled. Because the storm wasn't over. Hate didn't go quietly. Injustice didn't vanish with applause. But now, Maya had a map. A foundation. A growing army of ordinary people choosing to see each other. And that was how revolutions began. Not in shouts, but in steady, everyday choices. In showing up, soup in hand, heart open. In choosing dignity again and again. The sky over Baltimore was low and gray, thick with the weight of an oncoming storm. Maya stood outside the construction site of the Williams Center for Human Dignity. Her boots sunk into the soft earth. The framework of the building was finally taking shape, wooden beams, scaffolding, and tarps fluttering like flags of resilience. Each nail driven in was a small promise. She took a sip of hot coffee from her thermos, steam curling upward like a prayer. Behind her, the sounds of hammering and laughter echoed from a group of local volunteers. She turned, offering a soft smile and a nod. These were her people, working class, retired teachers, teens skipping video games to carry bricks. Nobody wore name tags here. Everyone showed up by choice. But peace, Maya had learned, often came with an expiration date. Caleb arrived just after noon, his face unusually tight, lips pressed into a line that meant trouble. "You need to see this." He handed her a folded copy of the Baltimore Times. The headline read, "Controversy erupts around Williams Center funding. Misappropriation allegations surface." Maya's stomach turned. "What the hell is this?" she asked, scanning the article. It was laced with vague accusations, missing invoices, improper procurement, exaggerated numbers from the Lantern Project's reports. Nothing concrete, but enough to make people suspicious. Caleb pointed to the byline. "Linda Moore. She fed this story. I have no proof yet, but I know her style. It's meant to sow doubt before the foundation vote next month." Maya exhaled through her nose. She couldn't beat us in the boardroom, so now she's playing dirty. "Oh, that, or someone inside is leaking," Caleb said quietly. "We need to plug the holes. Fast." By that evening, Maya, Jordan, and Caleb were holed up in a small office behind Jordan's tech incubator. The room was crowded with files, a whiteboard covered in timelines, and a small TV showing news coverage already speculating on the integrity of the Lantern Project. Jordan paced the room, visibly rattled. "The foundation board's meeting in 3 weeks. If they freeze the funding, we lose half our outreach programs, and the Williams Center halts mid-construction." Maya didn't flinch. "We fight. We show receipts. We show faces. Real people whose lives changed. We don't let a headline rewrite the truth." Caleb opened his laptop. "I'll start pulling community testimonials. We need the numbers, yes, but the stories will carry this." Jordan nodded. "And I'll get legal on the procurement chain. I'm not letting Linda Moore destroy this with smoke and mirrors." Maya looked between them. "Then we go public. No press release. I'll hold a community town hall. Let people ask me face to face." Jordan hesitated. "You sure? It could get messy." Maya's voice was steel. "So did my life. I'll be fine." The town hall was scheduled for the following Saturday, at a local community center. No cameras, no suits, no filters. Just folding chairs, coffee in styrofoam cups, and open doors. Maya stood in front of over 100 residents, single mothers, veterans, bus drivers, retired nurses. Some looked curious. Others looked concerned. A few looked disappointed. She didn't use a microphone. She didn't need one. "You've read the headlines," she began. "You've heard the whispers, and you deserve to hear the truth from my mouth, not some newspaper paid to twist it." She paused. "There's no missing money. There's no scandal. There's only fear from people who never thought a woman like me, with skin like mine and no family crest behind her name, could lead something that matters." A murmur rippled through the room. She continued, "I'm not a politician. I'm a neighbor, a caregiver, a daughter of this city. I've sat with the dying. I've fed the hungry. And I'll keep doing it, whether or not they print my name in gold or drag it through mud." A man in the back raised his hand. "Is it true they're freezing your funding?" Maya didn't dodge. "They're considering it, but I'm not waiting for their approval to keep building." Another voice piped up, a young woman, holding a baby on her hip. "You helped my mother find housing when no one else would. That article ain't got no picture of that." There were claps, then more voices chiming in dozens of personal accounts, each one a stone in the foundation Maya had laid, piece by piece, soul by soul. By the end of the night, they stood in a long line just to shake her hand. But not everyone was convinced. That following week, a video surfaced on social media, grainy security footage from a storage facility leased by the Lantern Project. The footage appeared to show boxes being removed by two staffers at night. The captions screamed, "What are they hiding? Williams Center scandal grows." Maya's phone rang off the hook. Reporters, funders, even Jordan was briefly shaken, until Caleb called. "I found the original footage." An hour later, he stormed into Maya's house, laptop in hand. "Here, watch this." He played the uncut footage. It showed the staffers Rosa and another young volunteer unloading donated coats and placing them in temporary storage. The timestamp? December. During the height of their winter drive. Caleb seethed. They edited the video, reversed the timestamp, and blurred the logos. Maya rubbed her temples. "They're not just afraid of what we built. They're afraid of what we represent." Jordan called minutes later. "We go live. Full video, context, timeline. I'll use my platform. No more silence." Within days, the backlash turned. Major news outlets picked up the real story. Support surged online. Numbers Stand With Maya trended for a week straight. Donations poured in not just from Baltimore, but from across the country. Former shelter residents posted videos of their experiences. Nurses from the Lantern mobile unit uploaded behind-the-scenes footage. Maya became a face not just of resistance, but of quiet, unshakable integrity. And then came the unexpected. Linda Moore resigned from her foundation's board. A brief statement cited health reasons, but insiders whispered about pressure, about donors who refused to be part of something that smeared community heroes for sport. The following weekend, Maya walked alone through the nearly completed shell of the Williams Center. The halls echoed with the promise of laughter and healing. She stepped into the community kitchen, sunlight streaming in through wide windows. On the wall, in newly painted script, were Edward's words, "You want to heal a person? Feed them with something that remembers the Sunday." She stood still, hand brushing the lettering. Behind her, Jordan appeared, holding 2 cups of coffee. "They're already calling it a comeback." She shook her head. "This wasn't a comeback. This was a reminder." "Of what?" "That the truth doesn't scream," she said. "It stands." And in that moment, Maya didn't feel tired, or angry, or wary. She felt ready, because storms always passed. But the ones who stayed standing after, they were the ones who built the new world. Maya sat alone in the office above the construction site, the scent of sawdust still hanging thick in the air. It was late, close to midnight, but her mind wouldn't rest. Outside, the city shimmered under the soft buzz of streetlights. But inside, something gnawed at her. The scandal with the altered footage had passed. But Maya's gut said the war wasn't over. Someone had gone to great lengths to undermine her fabricated evidence, manipulated media, planted doubt. That kind of sabotage didn't come from bruised egos alone. It came from somewhere deeper, more calculated. She clicked through files on her laptop, receipts, vendor contracts, volunteer rosters. Everything had been reviewed and cleared during the recent audit. Still, Something felt off. She stared at a logistics invoice from 3 months prior. A payment to a third-party security company. Only, she'd never approved private security. She zoomed in on the vendor name, Alphanet Watch. Maya didn't recognize it. The invoice was clean, proper formatting, appropriate numbers, but her instinct told her it didn't belong. She picked up her phone and called Caleb. It was nearly 1 a.m., but he picked up on the second ring. "Something's wrong," she said. By mid-morning, Caleb and Jordan were sitting across from Maya in the office, coffees in hand, eyes locked on the screen. "You're right," Caleb said, typing rapidly. "This company Alphanet Watch has no public-facing website. It's a shell, registered to a P.O. box in Delaware, and get this same address used in a network of fake vendors tied to, guess who? Linda?" Caleb shook his head. "Worse. Marcus Reeves." Jordan froze. "You can't be serious." Maya leaned forward. "Who is he?" Jordan rubbed his jaw. "Old contact of mine. Investor turned political fixer. He helps kill grassroots movements before they threaten larger interests. Funding, press, even suppression tactics." Maya's voice was quiet, firm. "So you think we've been infiltrated?" "I think someone planted those invoices," Caleb said. "Probably a low-level intern who didn't realize we check everything." Maya's chest tightened. "And we've been trusting the numbers." Jordan stood. "I'll make some calls. Quiet ones. If Reeves is involved, we need to be 10 steps ahead." Maya stared at the invoice again. A ghost in the files. A whisper of a larger enemy. Over the next week, strange things began happening. A mobile health van from the Lantern Project was pulled over twice in one day by city inspectors citing non-existent violations. A community fridge Maya had funded mysteriously vanished overnight. And then came the worst blow. A break-in at the Lantern headquarters. The office had been ransacked, papers scattered, hard drives stolen, nothing of significant monetary value, just data. Maya stood in the middle of the mess, heart pounding. Edward arrived minutes later, his face pale and lips pressed into a grim line. "They didn't take cash," he said, scanning the damage. "They took information." Caleb, who had arrived shortly after, pulled up a backup log from his encrypted cloud. "Thank God I mirrored everything last week. But they wanted to know who we're helping, who we're protecting." Maya clenched her fists. "They're not just coming after me. They're coming after the people we serve." Jordan arrived last, visibly shaken. "Maya, I have news. Not sure if it's good or terrifying. Reeves isn't just involved. He's funding a rival initiative on paper, a community revitalization project that just so happens to be breaking ground a few blocks from the Williams Center." Maya narrowed her eyes. "So he wants our narrative, our story, but without us," Caleb added. "And with a figurehead they can control." Jordan nodded. "They're already shopping press releases, painting it as a more professional alternative to Lantern." Maya sat down hard, her mind racing. This wasn't sabotage. This was a hostile takeover of the message, the mission, the movement. That evening, Maya called an emergency gathering of her core team. They met in the basement of a local church, a room that smelled of old hymn books and generations of prayer. "I'm not going to lie to you," she began. "We're under attack, but not with guns or fists, with headlines, contracts, and whispers meant to unravel everything we've built." Around her, nods, gritted jaws, determined eyes. "I won't ask you to stay if you're scared," she continued. "But I will ask you to fight smarter. We're not just rebuilding trust. We're defending a blueprint for dignity." Rosa stood up. "They came for our mural once. We painted it again. Let them try." Edward raised a hand. "Let's remember they want us to break character, to lose our center. That's how they win." Maya smiled faintly. "Then we give them nothing but grace and evidence." Jordan arranged a meeting with an investigative journalist named Avery Moss, a woman in her 40s, known for her no-nonsense reporting and moral spine. In a quiet coffee shop in Fells Point, Maya slid a folder across the table. Inside, backup copies of the faked invoices, shell company ties to Reeves, and the timeline of harassment. Avery flipped through the pages. "This is deep. If I run this, it could spark lawsuits, resignations. You sure you're ready?" Maya met her gaze. "We've been living the fire. I'm just asking you to name the smoke." 3 days later, The article dropped. The Invisible War on Dignity. How power brokers tried to crush a community from within. It exploded. Within hours, public officials scrambled to distance themselves from Reeves. Local radio stations brought Maya on for interviews. Donations surged again. And perhaps most powerful of all, former employees of Reeves's firm began leaking even more damning evidence. Maya didn't celebrate. She stood in the nearly finished Williams Center, watching the wind stir dust across the courtyard. She knew better than to think the war was over. New mask, same monster. Edward murmured, stepping beside her. Yeah, she said. But at least now, we're not fighting in the dark. He handed her a note. It was scribbled in rough handwriting. Your center threatens an empire built on silence. That means you're doing something right. A friend on the inside. She read it twice, then looked out the window, past the scaffolding, past the shadows, toward the rising dawn. Because she knew what came next. And this time she was ready. The Williams Center's ribbon-cutting ceremony was scheduled for the following Saturday, and Maya hadn't slept properly in days. Despite the recent victory against Reeves, something still lingered in the air, an unease she couldn't shake. The press had rallied. Yes. Donations were strong. Volunteers came in waves. But the opposition didn't vanish. It only retreated, waiting for the next moment of vulnerability. She was at the site early that morning, hours before the sun rose over the Baltimore skyline. The building stood proud now, modern yet warm, glass windows stretching wide to let in sunlight, smooth stone arches reminiscent of old Southern churches. It was more than a center. It was a monument to the unseen, the unheard. Jordan arrived not long after, holding 2 coffees. You're not supposed to beat the contractors here, he joked. Maya took a cup, grateful. Can't sleep. Brain won't stop. He nodded. Reeves has gone silent since the article. No press statements. No denials. Just nothing. That's the part that worries me, Maya muttered. Men like him don't disappear. They regroup. Jordan glanced around. Security's been doubled. Local PD's sending a cruiser for the event. We'll be okay. She gave a small nod, though her hands remained tight around the cup. Later that morning, Maya met with Caleb and Edward in her small office overlooking the central courtyard. We've confirmed the guest list, Caleb said. City council, community leaders, press. And a surprise. Edward raised an eyebrow. What kind of surprise? Caleb smirked. The mayor's coming. Quietly. Off the record. Apparently, his mother received help from Lantern during her last year. Maya blinked. That could shift things. Edward leaned back. Don't get dazzled. Politics don't change hearts. Only people do. She smiled at him, grateful. We'll keep it about the people. But just as she was about to ask Caleb about the last-minute logistics, her phone buzzed. A text from Rosa. Check the west mural. Now. Maya, Caleb, and Edward hurried to the western side of the building, where the center's main mural was painted. The piece was a vibrant explosion of color, hands holding hands. Sunflowers blooming out of concrete, eyes open wide toward hope. Now, half of it was defaced. Red spray paint slashed across the wall like open wounds. A single phrase scrawled in crude, angry letters. No place for lies. A small crowd had already gathered, whispering, taking photos. Some with their hands to their mouths in shock. Rosa stood nearby, visibly shaken. I came out here 20 minutes ago and saw it like this. Security cameras didn't catch anything. Someone must have known the blind spot. Maya's jaw tightened. They waited until right before opening day. This was calculated. Jordan arrived, eyes scanning the mural. Want me to call a press contact? Turn this into a statement? Maya shook her head. Not yet. First, we paint. Within the hour, the defaced mural was surrounded by community members. Artists, teens, elders. They came with paint, brushes, rollers. Maya led them. No cameras, no podium, just quiet determination. They didn't cover the vandalism. They integrated it. The red spray paint became flames under the roots of a blooming tree. The word lies was reshaped into rise. The scar was not hidden. It was transformed. By sunset, the mural was more powerful than before. That night, Maya returned home to find an unmarked envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a flash drive. Caleb arrived minutes later, after her quick, panicked call. She plugged the drive into an offline laptop. A single file. A video. It showed Marcus Reeves at a private fundraiser only 2 weeks old speaking to a circle of men in suits. She's dangerous because she can't be bought. That makes her unpredictable. And unpredictability disrupts stability. I'm not afraid of her politics. I'm afraid of her influence. If we let this movement grow, it'll be 1 city today and 10 tomorrow. The room laughed, low and bitter. Reeves continued. So, we do what we've always done, question the numbers, question the morals, question the person. Keep them busy defending their name while we build the alternative. The screen cut to black. Silence fell over the room. Maya sat back slowly. He's not done. Caleb exhaled. This was meant to scare you. No, Maya said softly. This was meant to warn me. Someone on the inside wants this known. Maybe they're tired of the game. Caleb nodded. What do we do? She stared at the dark screen. We move forward. Louder. The next morning, Maya called a press conference not for damage control, but for declaration. Standing in front of the repainted mural, she addressed a growing crowd. They tried to vandalize our wall, thinking they could silence our purpose. But we don't erase pain here. We build on it. They tried to smear our work, thinking we'd cower. But we don't hide from truth, we carry it. She held up a printout of the quote from Reeves's video, without naming names. There are those who fear dignity, because dignity can't be bought. But we aren't building this center for them. Her voice grew stronger. We're building this for the mother who needs shelter, for the veteran who lost everything, for the child who wants to read where it's warm, and for every person who was told they don't belong. Applause erupted, loud and steady. But more than that, tears. People hugged, people stood taller.